Things that own this land before Christ, before civilization. Most of them didn't survive the destruction of their natural habitat. Too primitive, I suppose. But strong, not like us. Not human, something else altogether. One of them survived as late as the 1400s. There's a carving of it being buried. It's on the altar. They called it Rawhead. The beast they buried. It's in the history books. Rawhead, it was called, because its head was huge and the colour of the moon, and raw like meat. It ate children. It ate children! Hey folks! Glad you could join us for our little library session. How are you all? Hope you're doing very, very well. Kilt-Man here, Kilt-Man, at your services. And a very big, warm and hearty cheers to you all. Cheers. Yes, that was some prose from the great Clive Barker. Yeah, local lad to me. Met him several times. Oh, Kilt-Man, you big name dropper, you. Yes, I met him before he was famous. I met him when he was famous. He forgot that he met me before he was famous. But there you go. That's what fame and fortune does to you. You forget your roots. Anyway. In his celebrated books of blood, there's one there. He wrote an epic short story about a pagan king, a deity that existed before Christianity, that ruled the land. A massive, 11-foot tall, penis-headed carnivore that devoured everything, but especially kids. And he ruled. But in the 1400s, he was subjugated, he was beaten, he was driven literally into the ground and buried underneath a particular stone which is a fertility symbol. So, his short story, Rawhead Rex, for that is the name of the beast itself, transpires that a farmer wants to remove this bloody stone that's in the way of making this field fertile. I need that bloody field. I need to get that bloody stone out of there. So he does. He manages to shift the stone. Whoops-a-daisy. Having all the township forgotten what really happened many centuries before. And this thing is buried there. Up comes Rawhead Rex. Kills the farmer, kills pretty much everybody around, lays waste to the town, tries to seek dominion over the world again, the world that he lost the power over. And it's a tale about sex and violence. Although there isn't a great deal of sex actually in the story. But Rawhead Rex, look at the name, Rawhead. He is meant to be a huge rampaging phallus. Rampaging, full of testosterone, spit and venom and other stuff across the landscape. And he does not like menstruation. Who does? But he's terrified of that. And that's the great conceit that Barker wove into this bizarre, paganistic, anachronistic horror fable. That he can be defeated. He's terrified of a woman who's going through the cycle. That blood's taboo, can't touch them. Oh no. But he was literally defeated by this effigy of a fertility icon and put under the ground, and this stone sat on top of him. Removal of the stone, he comes out, and he wreaks havoc. But what happens is the township of Zeal, which is in the initial story, it's set in Kent. I think it's Kent. It's certainly in rural England. Rise up, and like they did before, they beat him, destroy him, subjugate him. But it's the power of the stone, this effigy which defeated him before, which drives him, weakens him, and he's then defeated all over again. But Barker's story was all about sex. Sex in metaphorical terms, sex in philosophical terms, sex in very vivid graphic terms. But sex, basically sex. And enormous, colossal violence. It was a monster story, a religious deity story, a diatribe against, Christianity and against the sacrament of the family. It was all about complete anarchy. That's what Rawhead represented. It was obvious that someone at some point was going to try and make a film out of this. So, way back in those days, and we're talking back in 85, 86 now, Clive Barker met via a mutual friend, a Cypriot filmmaker, a fledgling filmmaker. He had done a couple of short movies, but he met George Pavlou, and he saw those couple of short movies and thought, yeah, let's do it. Well, I've got a couple of ideas. The Books of Blood are really taking off. I've got a story in there which I want to use, but I'll tell you what we'll do. I've got another script I want to run by you. Underworld. Yes. Gangsters and mutants and whatever. Starring Denham Elliott. A great cast, in fact, but Miranda Richardson's in there as well. And the eventual film that came out was known as Transmutations Elsewhere Around This Globe. And it met with absolute apathy, critical disdain and commercial ambivalence. Mainly because it ran out of money. It was a low budget production, but the budget was pulled at the last minute, so they had to make and do and scrimp and save and try and salvage what they had. Not the way to make a movie. So it was a disaster, really. And of course, Clive Barker didn't like it at all, hated it, in fact. But he still had this collaboration with George Pavlou, and he said, look, Rawhead Rex is the one we need to get done. It's a monster movie. We can do it on a low budget. With the tax incentives in Ireland for filmmakers, we can go there. It'd be a lot cheaper to make it over there. That did encounter many problems of its own because of working over there. But anyway, we'll come on to all those. So, 86, they decamp. They find a guy to play the 11-foot tall Rawhead Rex in the 6'11" German 19-year-old tennis coach or something, Heinrich von Schnorrendorf, although his name has changed now. It's Heinrich von Brüen or something like that. And he was not an actor, of course. But, so that was the idea. Well, okay, we'll change the script and we'll set it in Ireland, rural Ireland, around County Wicklow. That's what we're going to do. And we'll have, because we've got American financing in here and we need American distribution, let's get some American stars in. David Dukes comes in. Kelly Piper comes in. Kelly Piper? Who's Kelly Piper? Only a couple of movies on her filmography, but she was in Bill Lustig's Maniac. She was the girl that's killed on the subway. Oh, by Joe Spinell. Joe Spinell? Is it Joe Spinell? It is Joe Spinell, of course it is. I don't know. I've had whiskey, so, you know. The great cells, they flutter in the ether. Movie facts just disintegrate before my very eyes. But, so they decamp over to Ireland and they begin filming this. Barker has written one, maybe two, possibly three drafts, which are pretty much faithful to the story he wrote. And he has his monster in there. But because of funding, because of a lack of faith, you could say, in this production, a lot of the money which was meant to be forthcoming is not delivered. It doesn't go missing, it was just never there. It was never proffered to them, although it was promised. So Pavlou has got his cast and his crew. He's got English technicians and stunt people, including tip-tipping. The great tip-tipping is in there as well. And a lot of people that, you know, work to the English union rules. So a lot of it's meant to be a night shoot. But once you cross the threshold of midnight, we know it's all about that, don't we? Yeah, that's when the fun begins. But not on the location shoot for Rawhead Rex, because the English crew members, oh no, it's triple time after midnight. Well, they can't afford it. So they have to cram in so much nighttime shooting into a very limited slot. Because of the amped up, rushed schedule, the very brief pre-production schedule, that Peter Lytton and the other crew who were making the monster itself, well, they couldn't make what Barker wanted. Barker's creature, I'm going to show you now. This is the graphic novelization that came out by the great Steve Niles, adapted by Steve Niles, artists Les Edwards and Hector Gomez. I'm now going to show you how he's meant to look. Can you see that there? Let's try and avoid the ring light. Look, it's a great big penis. It's meant to be a penis. That's what it is. Is that what the film could come up with? No, and there'd be a lot of reasons why that would be. Obviously, I don't think they wanted to show a great big penis on the Rampage. But the makeup effects were rushed. They should have had months to do it. They only had about 4 weeks to do it. So the actual suit ends up being, instead of being exceptionally tall and slender, but immensely strong with a big penis raw head, it was a muscle suit with a guy with massive fangs like this, very similar to this in fact, with a mohawk, leathers, and a big prosthetic muscle suit. It was a two-piece suit. A two-piece suit. Not only does my memory go, but I can't count either. So the full body suit, the muscle suit, and then the head. And there were several heads. The head that Eric von whatever wore was there, and that couldn't do much. That was very limited in its scope and its animation. Just fixed in one grin really, and he saw through the mouth. So it gave him some extra height because he's 6'11". It's meant to be a lot taller than that. But he looks through the mouth, so the head's got some more height on it. Problems ensue with that, of course. And then you've got the animatronic head as well, where the eyes glow and the jaws move, and But anyway, we'll come on to all this. Barker hates the movie. We know this. Barker's on record many times to say he despised Underworld and Rawhead Rex. And the legend is that that's what inspired him to make Hellraiser, to adapt his own novella, The Hellbound Heart, into Hellraiser. Because I may not be able to do much better than the previous people. He means George Pavlou. But I can't do any worse, so I may as well do it myself. That's the legend. George Pavlou has another idea on this. Don't forget, these two guys were friends, or became friends, and worked together over 2 movies. He says something different. He says that Clive Barker had already said to him in a drive back from a friend's house when they'd been discussing all what they were going to do with Rawhead Rex, how they were going to mount this thing and produce it and direct it and all that sort of stuff in the script, that in the journey back in the car, Clive was saying, well, I want to do this, The Hellbound Heart, I want to make this. So George Pavlou says that, well, Clive Barker already had in mind he was going to be doing that. So to hear now, this is what he says now, to hear these days this oft-told myth that, oh, it's because they botched up my screenplays and made wretched movies that I thought I'll do Hellraiser myself. He already was going to do Hellraiser himself. The truth, as always, lies in between these things. Now, I'm not going to cast aspersions on anyone trying to get a film made, anyone trying to adapt a gloriously graphic, explicit, fabulously imaginative story, particularly the type that Clive Barker writes, is going to be problematic unless you've got a huge budget, unless you've got producers, studio, distributors who are willing to go the extra mile to tell the story that Clive Barker wrote, because Clive Barker's initial story is very, very, very taboo breaking. Children are eaten left, right and centre. You know, there's menstruation is mentioned, but there is many elements which are sacrilegious, blasphemous and just plain wrong, which do make it into the movie. So you have to admire how George Pavlou and Barker's, however other people may have come in and changed and adapted certain bits because of necessity, because they certainly, their shoot time was curtailed, and their individual shooting diary on each particular day was curtailed as well. So the finished film, it's a bloody miracle that we've got an almost 90-minute movie there from what they had. They had no time for rehearsals, so basically what they shot could well have been down to rehearsals. A lot of what you see in the finished movie, they were at the first, the second take, when really you wanted 3 or 4 more before you found the actual bit you wanted, the perfect bit. The entire resolution of the film is rushed and totally shortened from what it's supposed to be and transformed. These are the things that happen on low budget movies, but these are also the things that make such low budget movies fucking brilliant. And you've got to appreciate what goes into it. Now, I do. I'm pretty certain that most of you who watch this channel have a real good understanding and a unique love for this kind of film. The low budget, threadbare filmmaking, run on pure adrenaline and just enthusiasm and pure imagination. It works. Look at The Evil Dead. 3 years in the making, and it still looks like it was filmed in an afternoon, you know, even though the cast's visibly aged throughout it. But, you know, and look at the effects. Completely lackluster, but they're genius for what they are. And you, watching it, doesn't matter. You have now put yourself into that universe and you're enjoying it for what it is. Now, I'm not going to put Rawhead Rex from George Pavlou up in the same bracket as The Evil Dead. I'm not. But it's still a hell of a fun ride. I have a great time with this movie. It does take shortcuts. It does have a monster which is, from certain shots, looks great. Other shots look shit, i.e. the close-ups. But that doesn't really matter. It's still a great design. So, let's get on to the film itself. We've discussed the short story, and we will have to come back to it at some point, because we're going to be here for some time, folks. Yeehaw! Well, of course, we're actually in Rural Island now. Potato! Guinness! The black stuff! Leprechauns! It actually works really well with it being Ireland, because the fairy folk, the little people, the Celtic legends, Rawhead Rex's sort of heritage does really fit with the pagan sort of attitudes which were there, that the ancient Celtic beliefs. It's all there, so it does kind of lend itself to that. In the film, you have a couple of Americans. As I said before, you needed David Dukes and what's her name, Kelly Piper, who he is a historian, an author, and he's come to Rural Island to go around all the old churches and just chart how they evolved. Because as he says, and this is true as well, that most churches in the UK certainly have been built upon older religious grounds, holy grounds from different religions. Although Christian and Catholic churches will often, we don't like that, but this is Christianity. No, they were built, and the reason why that was is because they were subjugating what the older religions were. Now that kind of makes sense. If you want to come in and take over, then you're going to do that. We're going to stamp our claim on what was their old holy praying ground, their sacred land. There you go. Jesus, God, Holy Ghost, all that stuff. Stop those little dirty statues with big vaginas and big penises. Stop all that now. But Howard Hallenbeck, I think it is, that David Duke plays, he's taking pictures of all the stained glass windows. And as he says in the film, and quite rightly so, a lot of the stained glass windows that are in these churches, these older churches, do depict some imagery from religions which existed beforehand. Paganistic stuff and iconography is in a lot of these stained glass windows. So the film does get that completely right. And the idea that he's going to write a book on all this, that's got a good bit of impetus to it. I can believe it. Plus, he's saying to his wife, you know, and they've got a couple of kids who are played by 2 Irish kids, very small kids, who do a good job acting-wise, but their American accents aren't very good. And I'll let into a secret as well. When I first saw Rawhead Rex, when it first came out, it was denied a UK cinema release. It didn't get even an Irish cinema release. It did get a very limited US release a year later, but very spotty and really didn't go anywhere either. But when I first encountered it on VHS and Betamax, and just went, what the fuck is this? I'd read the book, the story, and I'd gone like, what the hell is this? Oh, this is cheesy beyond belief. And yet, when it finished, let's watch it again. Because it's great fun, it's entertainment. But I genuinely thought David Dukes was an English guy putting on an American accent. because he's got that transatlantic drawl, which is always adopted by people who, I want to sound American. Well, that's an English guy trying to sound American, But do they have that kind of drawl? And it just sounded so fake to me, especially amid all the genuinely rural Irish accents, because the rest of the cast are all Irish, and they're great. They're great character actors. They're great faces, great voices, and they lend such a gravity and a real sense of, of time and place and setting, that a film has to work on its locations alone. It's genuinely convincing. So, anyway, he's over there to write this book and photograph all these churches and the stained glass windows. His family are a bit pissed off because the weather's fucking awful. It's pissing down all the time. And he's enjoying himself, but they are not. But anyway, they end up in this little hamlet. And in one of the farm fields, there is not just a little stone, as in the original short story, but there's a great big monolith, an obelisk is there. And this farmer's trying to get it out of the ground. They've used a tractor, they can't do it. His two friends bug out. Oh, the tea's on the table. Oh, that's Scottish, by the way. Can't do Irish. And but anyway, he manages to make some headway. Oh, I'm going to stay and do this. Hope you choke on your tea. And he's working away. And in a rather poor visual effect, the sky is dark and lightning appears. And he manages to make a bit of a chasm in the ground, and steam and vapours come out. Weird music begins to play. Ominous atmosphere envelops us. And then lightning hits it, and this big obelisk goes over. And Rawhead, not played by the German guy. In this particular sequence, it's another guy playing him, because this was early on. I don't think he'd actually appeared on the set at that time. Leaps up, in bedraggled leathers, a ripped torso, huge fucking muscle suit on him, a mohawk type of thing, and a mane down the back, great big mandibles, great big fucking teeth like this, really huge. In fact, they're about 10 times the size of that, but looks tremendous. The image and the artwork for it is great. It is great. It's just certain close-up shots of that mask don't really work, although I do love the image of it. But anyway, he comes up, kills that guy. That's it, I'm awakened. The imprisoning stone has been removed. I now will rule this land again. He doesn't say any of this. And this is the other thing as well, because in the short story, you hear all of Rawhead's internal monologue. You know it. He's not stupid. He's not just a brainless beast. He wants to claim his kingdom again, but he has complete hatred and just laughs in the face of religion and all sorts of anyone fighting back, because they're pitiless humans. I can just take these guys out. And he will literally take the piss out of religious doctrine. Yeah, we're going to come on to the infamous baptism by infernal piss. We'll come on to that. And I made up the film did it, actually. I actually surprised, considering the other concessions that they had to make, that bit got in there. But anyway. So he has now been resurrected. But whereas in the short story, he has a clear agenda. I'm going to subjugate and take over this land. I'm going to have fun doing it. I will dine out under the moon and the stars on a hillock, eating the intestines of a small child. The delectation of all that. Then I'll lay waste to that village over there. Then I'll move on to that village. And that's what he does. He does have powers beyond that, though. And this is where the film gets it. Really gets it right. You have Ronan Wilmot. I had to look at his name. I've written it down there. Plays Declan the Verger. Oh my God. No pun intended. If anybody walks away from this movie with an absolute, look, I deserve an Oscar for this, it's him. Ronan Wilmot owns this. He is the verger. The verger on the verge of just complete hellish blasphemy, murder, rape, fucking whatever. He doesn't give a shit. In that scene where the farmer manages to upturn the monolith and resurrect Rawhead Rex. It's intercut with a scene of elegiac orgasm in the church. They're all singing that bloody hymn, that hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. It goes on for fucking ever, man. Honest to God, it just doesn't end. I mean, it's almost like the 12-inch mega mix of that hallelujah, but we do see the stained glass window, which has a depiction at the bottom of a huge monolith. There is Rawhead Rex being subjugated beneath this stone, but he's got these laser beam eyes, and it's almost, this is just before Predator. The laser beam eyes with the sun coming through the stained glass window ignite like the targeting of the Predator sighting system on Declan, and he begins to fall under the spell of Rawhead, because Rawhead can control people's minds. He can subjugate them to his will, which is a great touch as well. And Declan puts his hand on the altar. There's two altars there. There's one which is a very old altar. They don't really discuss this too much in the movie, but it's certainly in the book a lot. The main altar, and there's other little altar with a big sort of shroud over it and candles. Puts his hand on it, and when he puts his hand on it, because Rawhead's been resurrected, he sees he has a spiritual connection to Rawhead. He is now part of Rawhead's psyche, so he's now given himself over, body and soul, to Rawhead's dominion. And his hand, again, vintage, almost Doctor Who TV style visual effects, which again kind of let the film down a little bit, but they're hokey enough to be enjoyable. Rawhead. The thing is, he's already a bit of a twat, because you know that from that Hallelujah extended megamix. There's a girl, well, a woman, who's in the front row singing Hallelujah, and she's kind of looking at this balding, although only young, looks a bit like who played Merlin in Excalibur? Nicole Williamson. Sorry, I'm looking at the poster over there. Nicole Williamson. He reminds me of Nicole Williamson. He's got that same face, but he's got little wisps of gingery hair around the sides and nothing on top. I've got a couple of wisps and a bit of a sidewinder going on. But this woman is looking at him with sort of a lascivious sort of quality, and he's kind of trying to ignore it, but looking back at the this stained glass window and the hymn book and all that. But he's looking again. This is not developed, but quite clearly, this verger, he's been putting it about a bit, hasn't he? That's clearly what's going on. So he's already corruptible. I think that's what they're trying to say. I think. I don't know. But that's what it looks like to me. Anyway, so you've had all that. You've been introduced to him. And this is a lightning quick. You meet everybody. The Hallenbecks, the church, the verger, the village, Rawhead Rex himself, and you got the whole setup in the first 10 minutes. It's brilliant, brilliantly paced, and that's a great thing. That's a great plus point to it. There's no boredom in this movie whatsoever, unlike in Underworld, where it sags, and it's just, well, it's crap, basically. I can't really think of another word to describe it. It's crap. So anyway, Rawhead now is on the rampage, and he attacks the Nicholson's farm. Oh God, and this is in broad daylight. Now, in the short story, he devours a pony, he devours a child there, he devours Nicholson himself, the farmer. Now, in the film, his wife is heavily pregnant, and this is where the film tries to address this thing about women being the thing he fears most of all, the taboo thing. But it fudges it, because it doesn't make it clear or implicit enough as to why that might be. But in the short story, certainly, she's not pregnant, she's heavily menstruating at the time. So she witnesses her husband getting killed. She tries to drag her child to safety, her little daughter. Rawhead gets into the farmhouse. This is in the short story. He devours the daughter, but he won't kill the woman because he could smell the menstrual blood on her. And it's like, oh, it's poison, it's taboo, it's evil. He shrinks in fear from that, but she falls down the stairs and breaks her neck in shock, seeing her daughter getting devoured. understandable, I suppose. But in the film, she's heavily pregnant. She sees her husband getting shook apart and ripped up and gouged, screams, Rawhead turns around. It's broad daylight as well, which is why this scene really, really works. There's a thing about horror sequences, just, 99% of horror sequences are set in shadows, dark and gloom and night. Yeah, you can hide a multitude of sins. Everyone's afraid of the dark. Yeah, so that's why that works. But I always find something really incredibly powerful and potent about seeing something just standing there, broad, brazen, fucking big, bright daylight, and still being completely supernatural, completely evil, completely monstrous, and still coming for you. All the masks have gone, all the shrouds of camouflage are gone, it's there, shit, that's real. And in a way, I got that from Rob Zombie's Halloween, his first Halloween reboot, remake, in the last third, where Michael Myers becomes they just basically remake the John Carpenter's initial 1978 Halloween in the last third of Rob Zombie's movie. And although it's night time, but you see him really clearly, just matter-of-factly, coming through doors, coming down hallways and going upstairs, and that really frightened me. It genuinely still frightens me. So seeing Rawhead, even with that piss-poor mask, but the bodysuit, the size of him, and what he's doing, and just the sheer inhumanity of him, turning around in the well, I would say sunlight. This is Ireland we're talking about here, and it's a bit murky, dismal again. But you can still see him plainly, and he comes striding towards the farmhouse, smashes through the windows. She retreats upstairs, hides in the bedroom, but he then smashes through the bedroom door, and he rips across her dress and her belly, but discovers that she lies there convulsing in shock. She's pregnant, she's heavily pregnant, and it is big. Actually, I don't like the hands, although I like the overall look of Rawhead. The hands are a bit too puffy, a bit too big. I like the fact that his claws, like a cat, retract but come out when he's like, "Arr." So a bit like Wolverine, these claws are retractable, and "Arr." So his claws do come out, but she's pregnant. No, won't do it. But that's not elaborated on. That is not where the film will take you. Obviously, it's a bit difficult to do it because they're struggling with. You've got no internal monologue for Rawhead. Not sure how you do it really. You could have scenes of him lying back under the stars, showing him with some kind of like sentience, some kind of intelligence, some kind of basking in his own glory, not just running around attacking people and just because he's got claws and big teeth and I look monstrous. No, because there's no agenda to this guy. You don't really know what he's going to do. Story. I'll be back. The little file change there. I'm always trying to time this so that the file change, I can go like, and then the next shot I'm like that. But anyway, we're back. So it doesn't really manage to convey what Rawhead's thinking, what his plans are, and that's unavoidable, I think, with a lack of budget and the screenplay, which has been streamlined, and that's Barker's screenplay. You've got to remember that. So this antipathy between Pavlou doesn't claim that there is any, but Barker certainly makes it clear. I've distanced myself from all of those first two movies. But he was massively involved in them. He didn't go to Ireland, but he wrote the bloody screenplay, so, and he would have had a hand in, well, look, we've got no money. We can't make the costume that you wanted. We can't make him look like what you've written in the book. The only way you could have got that, Doug Jones, who plays Abe Sapien and the Pale Man and other spindly creatures in Guillermo del Toro movies, who is an awesome mime, dance and character actor in makeup. You need someone like him to play it, but he was not available or around at those times to be playing that kind of role. Pavlou approached Peter Mayhew, who played Chewbacca. Now at this time, 86, there's only been 3 Star Wars movies, But already Peter Mayhew's price was out of their bracket, but they took, Mayhew wanted to do it, but obviously it wasn't going to happen. They also wanted Dave Prowse, but Dave Prowse, if Mayhew was out of the sphere of costing, then Dave Prowse was in a galaxy far, far away. So there was no way of doing that one. So that's why in that rush they got someone that was not the kind of guy to do it. And Eric von Schlonberger, Brown, Brun, I don't know what his name is. He seems like a lovely guy. I've seen him in interviews. He seems like a lovely fella, and he's got a few sketchy memories of it, but he does remember certain key elements which involve boobs, and who wouldn't? But he had no acting sort of ability beforehand. Now, to act in a suit, to be able to convey a character through mountains of prosthetics and animatronics and a mask takes some doing. Whether your face or your eyes can be seen. Dave Prowse could do this in monster makeups. He could convey so much with his eyes. But people like Doug Jones can convey anything with movements. Bolajai Badajo, who played Alien, the Alien Xenomorph in 1979 for Ridley Scott, he had the size, certainly he could have been the guy to have played this brilliantly. Very thin but very tall, and very linear and lithe, but very full of poise. Now he could have done this with character investment and just the movements here, the movement there, a poise, could have created something. But that would have been the old penis-headed monster, which would be a different concept altogether on screen. Kevin Peter Hall, Harry and Henderson's Predator! Come on! Oh God, there could have been so much more he could have done. What's his name? Pete Cassidy, who played, he was in Star Trek and he was in The Bionic Man, playing the Sasquatch. People like that could convey so much with their eyes and with body movements. Well, this poor guy, he couldn't do it. So, although there's many shots where he looks great, he looks threatening, he looks intimidating, there's also many shots where he looks really ridiculous, and his movements, don't forget, he couldn't see. He's looking through the mouth. He's got no peripheral vision. He can't hear a frigging word anyone's saying to him and he's got no experience on set either. So you've got to give him some credit. He is Rawhead Rex, and and a lot of it works. He's still very threatening, still very intimidating, but it could have been so much more. This is the kind of film where, because of the restrictions and limitations of the guy playing the monster, it may have been better to have shown less of the monster. And I'm not always like that. If a monster looks good, show him on his glory. I want to see what he does. It takes a crafted director, a crafted cinematographer, a crafted actor in the makeup, and just crafted set pieces to make a monster work and be believable. Now, it can be believable because you don't see him, and it can be believable because you do see him. And I believe in both camps. And I would love this to have been believable in all aspects. See him in all his glory, all his bulbous-headed, completely phallic, testosterone spitting, jizz venomed glory. Or if you couldn't do that, keep him in the shadows. Just show the aftermath, just show claws coming in and teeth and just blazing eyes. Because this is the other thing, you've got his blazing eyes. Oh dear God. He can hypnotise people. He hypnotises Ronan Wilmot, obviously, who wants to become an acolyte, a devotee, a neophyte, a zealot. The original town in Barkersoy is called Zeal, so the people are zealots. And that's a nice play on religious, terminology, on what it really means. But he does put the mesmus there on people. And his eyes, and it's not an optical effect, they are fibre optics in the eyes, on the animatronic head, not the mask that the guy wore. And these eyes just sort of glow, but they seem to spin as well, and they seem cross-eyed. And you're like, oh no, this could have been a really good element, but you don't go and fucked it up. It just looks really dizzy. It looks dizzy, but now because I appreciate the film for what it is, not for what it can't achieve, but what it does achieve and what it tries to do, and I really do enjoy it for that. But you know, you kind of look at it and you go like, oh, that looks shit, that. Oh, but and he's going, and that animatronic jaw, which only moves like that, and like, and it looks really rubbery and fake. Now, apparently, Peter Litton says there were many shots which never made it into the final cut where the head did a whole lot more mannerisms and characteristics and expressions, but they didn't really show any of that. Look, yeah, okay, but that's, you know, he couldn't. He didn't have much time for editing on the movie, so it was difficult to do. It's one of those, it's a clusterfuck of imagination, enthusiasm, talent, but no time and no money. It can't work, can it? The equation does not fit. It does not balance out. So you've got to understand that. But Rawhead Rex is still enormously good fun. David Dukes gives it loads. He sees his son get devoured in the short story and in the graphic novel adaptation. His son is devoured with the teeth. And so you've got that, and you've got the Irish police, the Garda, oh dear, and these guys have got no idea what shit's been coming for them, and they're finding bodies mutilated, they're hearing tales of this great big beast wandering around the countryside. They've got this woman in shock, heavily pregnant woman in shock, can't say a word. You've got a kid who's seen a body hanging in the trees with no head. He can't speak, but he drew a picture of that, basically. You've got the stained glass window, you've got David Dukes, Howard Hallenbeck discovering there's something out there, and it's because he sees it. You've got the campsite attack. Sorry, I am now steaming through the rest of it, but you know, you've either seen it and you know what I'm talking about, or you listen to me and you're going, I'm never going to watch that film, so I don't care. Kilt-Man, just carry on drinking. You have two attacks on the campsite. This little trailer park, you know, in idyllic rural Ireland, County Wicklow, pissing down rain. Apparently it was the worst winter, the worst weather they'd ever encountered in like 100 years. You always hear this, don't you? You know, something about like making a film in places that, oh, it was the worst winter they'd ever encountered. Or, you know, we went there because we wanted snow, like The Thing, but there was no snow. They had the mildest winter ever. So we had to make our own friggin' snow. The elements conspire against you. And, you know, having lived the life that I have lived thus far, I know exactly all about that. All the best laid plans of mice and men fucking fall to rack and ruin because of what's up there in the heavens will piss all over your parade. So it's freezing cold, it was wet all the time. So, but you have the campsite thing, and you've got to know a little family dynamic with these two brothers. One brother wants to make out with this girl, but his little brother's watching shit on a portable TV, and he's got all action figures and a robot, but he won't leave the room. So, like, you know, they're trying to, like, you know, his hands in their top, and he wants to do all that kind of business, you know. And yeah, hey, you little dickhead, little bastard, and he's calling him. These are brothers. Anyway, the brother gets slain. Cue a great sequence where the girl is running back to the campsite, screaming her head off, there's something out. Well, just babbling. You know, he's here, and she holds up the hand, the severed hand of her fella, this little lad's brother. And he's seen the monster as well, decapitating somebody else, and he's drawn the picture of it, and it's just, and these poor Irish coppers are like, you know, so, Chief, do you think there's something to this American fella? I told you I can't do the accent. I really can't. Potato. Westlife. Boyzone. So they're kind of like going along with the American, because the American does see it. He's taking a walk, he's heard all the sirens. This is a little tiny enclave in Ireland, rural Ireland, They're from America, but they hear sirens and shotgun blasts and machine gun fire on a literally minute by minute basis. That's just American life. But in little rural Ireland, what? I mean, Northern Ireland, yeah, especially during 86 and all that entire period, yeah, it would have been a very regular occurrence. But down there, on the Emerald Isle, no. So he's looking out the window and there's all police cars going past, and I'm, what the hell? I've got to go for a walk. We've all done that, haven't we? We've heard sirens going past the house in the wee small hours and gone out for a little scare as to what's going on. I wonder if maybe I can help. Kilt-Man, we don't need you. Put the machine gun down. Go back to your house. Go on. We don't need you. No terrorists here, Kilt-Man. We're okay. So he goes out there, and there's already been a killing at the campsite. So, but he sees, and this is what we're saying before about seeing, and just a matter-of-fact shot of the monster. Now it's not daytime, it's nighttime, but he's on a great big sort of almost Close Encounters poster of a track going over a hill with the moonlight and the stars, shrubbery on either side. Also reminds me of Invaders from Mars. Go over the hill, and then things happen beyond that hill. And but that's the iconic image. And David Duke's Howard Hallenbeck sees, he just sees Rawhead Rex just standing there with a severed head in his hand, or a severed hand in his head. I don't know, one of the two. And he's just stood there, and like he's like having a cig, and he's like, "Fuck is that?" Don't put the ciggy in your eye. Looks up again, or drops the ciggy actually, and he's gone. But I like that shot, and it's mimicked just a bit later on when they try to drive out of town, and his wife, Kelly Piper, sees out the window, in broad daylight, a huge figure standing in a field, and she's creeped out by it. Stop the car. So he stops the car, and they go back, and it's just a scarecrow. But that's the kind of thing that gets you going. It's like, shit, that is right there. That's in my face. That's brazen. Okay, just a scarecrow. But Rawhead is just standing there in that particular sequence with the severed head, and he's looking at Howard Hallenbeck, who knows, well, that's what's doing the killings, and it's seen me. I've seen it. I know you coppers don't believe what I'm saying, and as if, Actually, these coppers aren't that bad. You imagine the Living Dead at Manchester Morgue with the ultra right-wing police force there, led by Arthur Kennedy, Irishman Arthur Kennedy, who just blame the hippies, who are not any problem whatsoever, for killing and cannibalizing bodies. And like, he blames all them completely, and it's like, whoa. But I am reminded of that film with these local constabulary and their small-minded sort of mindset. But these guys are far more efficient, they send out, the Garda with the old ancient FNIL rifles, and they've got riot guns and that, like shotguns and police shields and like the big visors on the helmets. So they've got a lot of this stuff going on. Folks, we are about to finish this file again. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to have a little swig of this. And then me and the boys are going to say to you, we're going to catch you in literally a lickety-split. It didn't work, did it? It's alright, the file hasn't started again, so we're alright. Oh! Yeah, in a flash! And here we are again! Whip crack editing there. So yes, I'm not sure where the hell we were, because in the interim, I've had my lunch, and I've watched 4 episodes of Modern Family. Oh yes. He loves it, he does. But yeah, Rawhead, Irish constabulary, blood and guts aplenty. Rawhead has wrought havoc on a little campstead of little caravans. In America, it'd be a trailer park. They'd be these huge, great big, massive mobile homes. But in this, they're little caravans to be towed behind a car. And we've already encountered this lot before because the brother got slayed, and Rawhead comes back again and starts rocking a caravan over, and all these various Irish denizens of Irish soap opera TV are all sitting in there swigging away on alcohol and having a good time, and all of a sudden this big beastie has arrived and it's absolutely just going to lay waste to these guys. It manages to pull a couple of people out and put the chompers on them, blood spraying everywhere, and then it pulls out the this is what the producers were told they had to put in there: a bit of boobage, a bit of the old chesticles. So a very, very attractive, dark-haired young floozy, a model apparently, is hauled out of the window of this particular caravan, and her top just opens up, and they begin to jiggle and bounce, and she is grabbed by the throat and thrust against a tree, and her neck's broken. It's just a really terrible moment where it stands out like, I would say a sore thumb, but it stands out like a couple of really gorgeous boobs, and in a film which doesn't have anything like that ordinarily, and they just are there, and it's purely gratuitous, purely brief, but you know, it's nice. It's nice, and it's funny that the guy that played Rawhead, Eric von Scheisendorsen Bruin thing, and I don't know what his name is. He remembers that bit quite well, quite vividly. I mean, I know he had no peripheral vision, just purely looking through the mouth of the beastie. He couldn't hear anything, but he could see those right in front of him. Right. I don't need any directorial input now. I know what I'm doing. God, take these latex paws off me and let me use my own hands. But anyway, so it's a very gratuitous scene, but it also has a quite exciting explosion in there as well, because all the other people in the caravans come out to see what the commotion's about. People are getting left, right and centre. Limbs are getting lopped and all sorts of stuff like. And one guy comes up, boom, with a rifle. Why has he got a rifle? He's just gone camping, for God's sake, and he's got a rifle with him. This isn't North America. They're not out hunting. What are they hunting? Leprechauns, you know? But you've also got a guy, he's got a fella pinned against the side of the caravan. He's like that. And this other guy runs up behind him and starts doing body blows, Rocky style. Hoo. Rawhead just throws the boy down, turns around, gets him. Blood spews out of his gob and all sorts. But this guy comes out with a rifle, takes a pot shot, boom. Doesn't bother our Rawhead. The animatronic head just turns around and goes, arr, with its glowing red eyes. And all of a sudden, another shot takes out one of those little gas drum things, you know. I don't know what they are. You know, they're full of gas and kerosene or whatever. But boom! And wow, this caravan goes up. The fucking ground shakes. Debris goes everywhere. God, even in the film, you feel, whoa, Jesus, that was really intense. Brilliant. But it just means that Rawhead can then rake more havoc, and you see him with his severed head, very similar to in Predator 2, where Kevin Peter Hall as the Predator in the urban LA landscape, the LA jungle, has King Willie, Calvin Lockhart's head, and just walks off with it. You know, it's very similar to that, but there's a big burning bonfire of bodies, and it's obviously just throwing bodies onto it. But it's a great sequence, and it shows that the film has a huge amount of genuine ambition and kind of go for broke stunt work and effects work. Yeah, you've got the sort of ramshackle monster itself, but they're going all out for fire effects and just stunts, and there's a car crash in it later on, because obviously the police arrive en masse to the campsite where all this chaos has been ensuing, and they're all there, and they realise, oh shit, yeah, there definitely is some kind of monster out on the loose here. Look what it's done here. and there's loads of vehicles as well. They all tumble out of the Garda police station, like about 15 vehicles. And that's quite an amazing shot. About literally all these vehicles come tumbling out of a very small exit in the wall. Vehicles. That takes some doing. And the big inspector, who's been just chugging away on ciggies the entire time and just not getting what's happening. Typical authority and bureaucratic ineptitude. And him and his driver bug off down the lane. He must have gone that way or whatever. And next thing, no, we've gone too far, turn round, and Rawhead does come in there. And he just grabs the inspector, hauls him out, fucking car. And the other guy, whoa, instead of like, oh, never leave a man behind. I've got to look after my inspector. I've got to look after my comrade in arms. No, just fucking puts his foot down and drives off down a little rickety country lane. Hits a weird obstacle, overturns, boom, gone. But the inspector, our Rawhead, gets him and applies those helter-skelter laser beam kaleidoscopic eyes, which are just going completely, running in circles and going, completely inwards and looking completely cockeyed. And all of a sudden, we know this inspector's now under the spell of Rawhead. And the film goes even more. It goes even more into the possession of people, because we've got Declan, we've got, what's his name, Ronan Wilmot, who is, as I said before, he owns the movie. The big pivotal scene, which is in the short story and it's in the movie, and it's a miracle it got into the movie because it's such a piece of bizarre, horrible blasphemy, but it works so brilliantly in a kind of comic, subversive tone, because he's become an acolyte of Rawhead. He's met Howard Hallenbeck, and the American guy, David Dukes, and doesn't like him because obviously, right from the word go during the Hallelujah hymn, he's become smitten with the whole thing about Rawhead Rex. So he knows he's out there and he's already a disciple. So the American comes in to photograph stuff. Can I see the parish records? And yeah, they're in the refectory. Just go out there, keep walking, and turn right. Yeah. And then later he sees him again, and he's like, "Get the fuck out of here." And the American's like, what's your problem? And his camera falls on the floor, and Declan smashes the camera, and he's in his face the whole time, like, "You get the fuck out of here now." He's brilliant. He's so OTT. He's Father Ted with absolute fucking steroids pumped into him and pure rage, roid rage. That's what he's got, and he's absolutely incredibly good and very vibrant, very intense, and comically brilliant as well. But this guy is an acolyte of Rawhead Rex, and you've got the parish priest, the vicar, the whatever he is, who is a good guy, but the verger, Declan, is a bit of a fucking loose cannon anyway. But he goes and spies upon Declan out in the graveyard one night, and Declan has ripped open his shirt and he's on his knees in supplication to Rawhead, who's standing towering above him, just in the grave. Again, this is what we're saying about the matter-of-fact shots in this, which actually work. The priest comes out and he's hiding behind tombstones and he's peering and he's like, "What's going on there? Oh no, there's Declan, my verger," who's like that. And Rawhead Rex, who goes back to the priest and us, is pissing on the priest, on the verger, giving an infernal baptism, a complete subversion, a taboo wrought variation on the entire baptism of the Lord. It's outstanding. It's in the book, and he's in the short story, and he's giving it loads. He's loving it. He's writhing in it. And in the film, Wilmot's doing this. He's really going for it. And apparently, it was freezing cold that night, and he had a water hose, which was obviously the way it was looking. It was just spouting this arcing rope of urine, of demonic urine all over his face, and he's bathing in it, and you're like, oh God, I don't believe this. Now, if you've not read the short story and you come to this film, you're going to go, what the fuck is that about? But it's in the short story. As I say, the film does adhere. It changes a little bit here and there. It does change the stuff. It changes the impetus. You don't get the monologue, the internal monologue of Rawhead Rex. You don't get why his fear of women is so intrinsic to his being, why menstrual blood is taboo and poison to him. And it's a great idea. But you do get, the film does try to bring in women as being the thing which is going to destroy him, although it's not made clear why that might be. But you've got Declan bathing in demonic piss, and it's a truly abhorrent sight, but it's highly amusing at the same time. And but this thing, he's infected the police inspector as well. So during the big confrontation in the church, which, by the way, production-wise, they did film in certain churches, but they were not allowed to film any desecration or wreckage, death, carnage in any church. Well, you can understand why. They're not going to do that, are they? So they had to build up a mockery of a church with all the stained glass windows and all that. So it looks fine. Looks fine. You have this altar, which is in the short story. There's two altars, and like this one in front holds the original. Well, it holds the stone that's going to put him back in the fertility stone that's going to put him back in his grave, which in the film is the big monolith. But you still need this gaping vaginal fertility statuette. You still need that to do it, and it's in this front altar. So, in the story, that altar, whenever anyone draws near it, it's been known, and I think people keep it quiet, but when they ever draw near the altar, it gives them a humongous boner. It gives them an enormous throbbing erection. And that's just the women. This is Barker's stuff. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. He just didn't give a shit, did he? He just didn't care. I'm going to push this. There's a boundary there which I already know. I'm pushing that. Okay, sod it. I'm going right beyond it. And he just does. He just does. Because it's written so well that you buy into it. It doesn't become completely... Put the book down. So elements of this do bleed into the film, but the throbbing erections by the altar do not make it into this movie. They put their hand on it and they will see visions, and they will get their palm burns, but they will become acolytes of Rawhead. Well, at least Declan does. The priest has a vision and gets his palm burnt as well. But Rawhead, in that moment, Declan grabs him and thrusts him down the desecrated church. Here he is, I take him. There's no Christ. He came before Christ. He is our God. And he's like thrusting the priest towards him. And the priest holds up a crucifix, in that time-honoured fashion. Oh, like that. And Rawhead. And it's not a great... It's actually a bit of a piss-poor moment. How many demons have we seen just take the crucifix out of the zealot's hand and go like, ha 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 ha. Melt it, crunch it, just drop it. It means nothing to me. Salem's Lot, Fright Night, got so many movies. It's been in there, but you got it in Rawhead Rex as well. And the crucifix is brought up, but Rawhead just that big, ungainly, horribly padded and undetailed paw just grabs this thing, cut back to the guy in the suit, and he just goes and crunches it. But you don't even see that very well, so it loses a bit of impact there, I've got to say, because that could be a great pivotal moment, a great anti-Christianity, your religion means nothing, I came before all that, and I'm more powerful and all that. But they kind of lose it there. The priest gets ripped up, wrecked about, all the police arrive outside, and about 6 or 7 villagers as well. Keep the people back! Keep them back! There's about 6 people there, like, who are all looked together in the frame, going, hey, potato, get them back, get them back. But the can we shoot? Can we just shoot? No, you might hit the priest. He's dead already. No, he's still breathing. And the priest is all ripped up and that, like. And in the book, he is ripped up, but he does survive to be able to speak and tell about the altar and what might destroy Rawhead. The body gets heaved. The police open fire, or rather, the command is about to be given, fire. But the inspector, remember him, who's been possessed by those bedeviling red laser beam eyes, he has gone to one of the cars and poured kerosene or petrol underneath, running down the road underneath all the people who were there with the guns and the villagers, and then sets fire to it because he's one of Rawhead's disciples. Woomph! 11, maybe 12 people go up in flames. Now, up until that point, Rawhead Rex had the record for the most people on fire in a scene ever. It held the record for that. Now, you've got to remember this is a film which is, although it's now a cult item, which it genuinely is, and it gets the recognition it now deserves, but it is a cheeseball, goofy adaptation of Barker's incredible fiction. But it does set a few precedents there. I know, on camera, a priest getting pissed on by a demon in a sacrilegious blasphemy of the baptism. And you've got the most people ever set on fire on camera in this little low budget set in rural Ireland. You know, how did that come to be? The problem with that sequence is it's not filmed very well, because you've got, as George Pavlou says, and all the stuntmen involved in it have all testified, this was a record breaker, and they're all on fire, they're in bodysuits, and the police and the villagers are writhing round, and the inspector himself becomes bathed in flame, and he rides his way up to Rawhead to give supplication to him, but he's melting away, he's finished anyway. But you really don't see on camera that many people on fire, and it's kind of, you kind of, well, yeah, that's brilliant, and made up you did that, and you did it well, but you didn't show it. I think on frame you see about maybe 4 tops people on fire, which is a bit of a shame if that's their claim to fame, but because you don't see it. But anyway, that is true. I think it's been superseded now. I think before that, the Towering Inferno, the famous in Towering Inferno, only had, I think, 6 people were ever actually ablaze at one time on camera. But Rawhead Rex, a little low budget Clive Barker adaptation in the early days, topped it, good style. But anyway, so you get that sequence, which is a great action sequence as well. But then David Dukes turns up. David Dukes has opened the altar. He's found the little statuette, the fertility statuette with the gaping vag, and he storms against Rawhead in the cemetery, and he holds it aloft. But Rawhead just doesn't mean fuck all to me, mate, and starts striding towards him, starts hailing David Dukes around. Don't forget, he's lost his son. His son's been chomped. In the book, he gets really severely chomped. In a film, you don't really see that. You know what's happened, and that's bad enough, to be honest. There is child slaying in this movie, and far more in the short story and the graphic novel adaptation. But so David Dukes is duking it out with Rawhead, and he's coming a cropper, and then suddenly re-enter the wife, Kelly Piper, she's not the best. She's not the best actress in the world. To be honest, she comes across as some kind of horny MILF. She hates Ireland, she hates the weather, she hates being there, she's sick of her husband's obsession with these old churches. Can't we just go to Dublin and get pissed, and then we can go fuck and all that, and you've got all this sort of stuff going on. They have a necking session in the middle of this little tiny town, this little one street hamlet, and in one of George Pavlou's little sort of throwaway homages to Don't Look Now, Nick Rogue's Don't Look Now, he has an Irish woman scowling at them with a red, sort of anorak on, and walking off and turning around with a sort of hatchet face, just like the little demonic goblin-like imp that's doing the slayings in Venice in Don't Look Now, Nicholas Rowe's classic horror movie of time shifting and paradoxes. And so that's a nice little in joke there. It's nice that it's there. But so you've got this woman, Kelly Piper, she's kind of shit up until this moment, when then she becomes, well, I'll take hold of this. I've arrived. You've killed my son. I'm saving my daughter, Minty. Minty? Does she smell? And she has the amulet, and because it's a woman, you're treated then to this huge, elaborate, and rather lackluster light show finale. Very, very, very similar to what happens in Michael Mann's The Keep, when Molasar Rassilon is driven back into the keep by Glaken Trisnadatus, Scott Glenn, with his lightsaber sword thing, and the big, huge, rather spammy visual effects of laser beams and stuff with smoke. You've got the exact same thing here, and it looks tawdry, it looks crap. It is not the finale that anybody wanted, and it was meant to be far more elaborate. But what had happened in actuality, they'd run out of money. That money I mentioned before, that funding had dried up, gone. Shit, you've got no money left. So George Pavlou gets told, way before the end of the movie, the end of the shoot, that's it, there's nothing left. He's just like, well, this happens to me on Underworld. You expect me to finish the film? A big monster, a big effects-laden finale. How am I going to do it? A night shoot with English crews that fuck off at midnight. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to do that? So he walked off the set. His car was parked there, and he starts walking back down the country lanes to the hotel. The hotel, incidentally, which had U2 in it, rock band U2. They were all staying there, and U2 were about to go on a world tour, and they were there at the time, and they were helping out the assistants on the typewriter because they couldn't fix the type. Bono was trying to fix the typewriter for the script assistants on this movie. Adam Clayton was talking with the effects guy and other guys there, and U2 were having a great time with this film crew. Wonderful time. George Pavlou thinks, sod this, can't be arsed anymore, he's treating me like shit, I'm going home, forget it. Forgets his car and starts walking back. The producers run after him, no, please, please, please come back, let's just try and do what we can, let's just try and salvage something, let's finish the film. Well, at that point, all the English crew were saying, we're out of here, you're not paying us, it's over, bye bye. George Pavlou then has to negotiate and plead and beg with these guys, look, please, please come back, please, let's just try and finish the film. It'll only take one evening's worth of shooting, let's just do that. So he said, I'll be here the next day, just whoever turns up, we'll just do what we can. Can't pay you, but let's just do what we can, try and finish the film. And he said about half a dozen crew members did turn up, so they were able to film that finale. With Rawhead is, because he's crippled by the laser beams of a female-driven fertility icon, he's like on the deck. David Dukes comes up with like a great big iron railing, because iron can kill these demons, and it's a thing against witchcraft as well. Plunges that into him, and the whole demonic light show takes place, and a grave he's lying on opens up, and Rawhead falls into it, and falls back into the ground where he once was before. And then you cut to the really rather unnecessary and completely crap, yet you kind of go, ha 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 ha, finale. The post-climax. And you've got the little lad whose brother, because he was intruding on his brother's love-making session in the caravan, his brother runs out into the woods with his girl, and he gets ripped up and killed. His grave is there, and the younger brother goes there to the grave, and he visits the grave, and that's all nice and good. It's a nice sunny day, you know. And then in the final frame, Rawhead, who's been buried just over yonder, suddenly comes up, and you're like, oh Christ! And then the film ends. Colin Towns, from a rock band initially, had done a great score for the film Full Circle with Mia Farrow, and he's worked consistently in movies ever since. And he's a wonderful guy. To hear him talk, he's a bit spaced. You know, this guy, you know, 70s and 80s. This guy's been through a fair bit, you know, but he knows how to orchestrate music, and he had a tremendous orchestra for this movie. I've been playing his score to Rawhead Rex throughout all of this, as you've heard, and it's a wonderful score. It's a great horror score. It's a throwback score. The movie, in many ways, is a throwback to Man in a Suit, Monster Rampage movies, and on that basis alone, it works, and it gets 2 of those from me. But what he comes up with as a score is wonderful. It's evocative. It's got Irish, Celtic sort of, you know, flavours to it, but it's got real demonics as well, and it's a lush orchestral score. And he had 2 great impresarios playing with a trumpeter and somebody else playing something else, a flute, a glockenspiel, triangle, I can't remember. But he had great players and performers there, and what he come up with was outstanding for this film. This little low budget, low key, but lofty ambitions production, and this guy came up with a balls out wild score, which is tremendous. I'm going to just play another bit here, which isn't that great. I choose a sequence to play and it goes very quiet. This is the attack on Nicholson's farm. Jane, the cymbals, the big bass drums, bit of electronics in there as well. As Rawhead striding towards the farmhouse and the pregnant woman in the movie version. Rawhead Rex at this time was also meant to have a graphic novel. Steve Bissett, who had worked so well with Alan Moore for Swamp Thing and had his own Taboo comic books, was working in cahoots very closely, listen to this, I love this, with Clive Barker to produce a faithful adaptation in graphic novel form, which is going to have the proper penis-headed, tall, thin, yet super strong, toothy, Japs-eyed monster that Clive Barker described. We're going to do all that and tell the story as you wrote it initially. But the whole thing fell through eventually because the rights got sold on. And in the end, Steve Niles, who did 30 Days of Night, which is awesome, came up with this. And this is outstanding. We have gore aplenty. Rawhead is as Rawhead is in the story, the original story. The cops are all there, the story is all there. But this is what I was going to say, in the film, David Dukes' wife, Howard Hallenbeck's wife, is what destroys Rawhead, because Rawhead can only be killed by a woman. There you go. But in the book, in the story, it's not a woman, does it? He doesn't like menstrual cycles. It's taboo, it's poison to him. But it's the townsfolk. Like initially, it's the townsfolk who rise up and are able to beat him and destroy him and club him and rip him and claw him. But it's the power of that fertility stone, which in the book it's a guy called Ron, who goes through the same cycle as David Dukes, photographer and journalist and writer from America. So he has this thing and he's crunching, Rawhead's skull down, but the crowd have torn him to bits anyway. So that's how he gets defeated in the story. But in the film, it is a woman. The film, it's taking this menstrual thing but it's not making it clear why that is. He's like, oh, it's a pregnant woman, I can't touch her. You don't know why. You've got no idea why. He kills kids in the film. Why doesn't he want... In the short story, he wants newborn babes who are blind from the womb, with their sweet as flesh. That's what he wants. So, you know, it's kind of like you're trying to embrace that side of it, that topic, that horrible, despicable topic, but you haven't had the guts to do it. So, okay, we're going to have a woman. Only a woman can defeat him. But it's not made clear why that is. But what I do like is that the film's entire thing, which is not in the short story, is about the stained glass windows. You've got that stained glass with the image of Rawhead at the bottom. When the sunlight comes through it, the piercing laser eyes can possess people, which is a wonderful little touch. You've got that, but because Howard's taken all the pictures of these things, he's realised that there's a piece of glass missing from that pane. And he works out, well, hang on, when were these churches rebuilt and the windows put back in again? And he's took pictures of all the windows. So he works out that, hang on, that piece that's missing there, it's actually in another window. Well, what is it? And of course, it's this particular stone, this fertility stone. So where is that? It's in the altar. So that's how they find all that. And I do like how that's where the film has its own little universe, its own little sort of linear narrative, which works. It was always foretold, and as I said right at the start of this massively rambling bloody review, that churches do keep the records in their stained glass of where they were built and what they were built over. It might just be a little tiny shred of evidence there, but it's still going to be there. So that works really well with this movie story of an ancient pre-Christianity deity, a king, an evil overlord who's come back to claim what is his. This is mine. I shall claim it now. It has been claimed. So, George Pavlou's Rawhead Rex, it limped out onto video in the 80s. It went nowhere. I remember a great quote. I remember the quote, I can't remember who said it or what it was in, but I think it was like a movie magazine or a trade publication, advertising, video whale, that sort of thing, about what forthcoming videos there were. And it said, like forthcoming, Rawhead Rex, aka pissed off Celtic troglodyte, does the Rohan shuffle across rural Ireland. And really speaking, that's actually amazing. That is exactly what the film does do. Rawhead in this movie is not the beast as Barker envisaged him. And that's why Barker does not like this movie. But he looks... The same year as this came out, you had Highlander and the Kurgan, and no one else has made this connection that I've heard or seen or read about. But Clancy Brown, who plays the Kurgan, especially in the opening scenes of Highlander, with that helmet, the skull helmet and the mane of hair and his leather gear and all that, like, and his sword, he looks, under the fur and feathers on his shoulders, he looks just like he's wearing the same gear that Rawhead Rex wears in this. Dishevelled leather, the same hulking frame, teeth, which are on the helmet, and the hair, because Rawhead Rex has some kind of mane of hair. So there's a similarity there. And they both came out the same year as well, so you can't really say, oh, one ripped off the other. They both were in production at the same sort of time. So, but, Rawhead Rex, folks. I think I've done massive justice to this movie. This has been almost a feature-length review for a film which a lot of people just go, that's a pile of shit. I hate that film. It's so cheeseball. Watch it again. Yes, you're not wrong. It's cheeseball. complete cheeseball. It has that gratuitous stand out like a sore thumb or a big erect nipple boobage shot. It has some lackluster prosthetics in close-up and some very poor animatronics, or rather not shown off to their best. But it actually tells a rocketing, rollicking, roller coaster good story. And I love it. You can have a great deal of fun with it. It's acted pretty well. David Dukes gives it some. That transatlantic drawl, that's his own fucking voice. That's just my interpretation, but that's his proper voice. And especially, oh God, what's his name? Ronan Wilmot is just incredible. It's Declan. The verge of beyond the verge of sanity. He's dipped his toes into the briny of brimstone. This guy is fucking evil, and he's having a great time doing it. Oh, Rawhead! He's basking in demonic piss. He's grabbing the priest car and dragging him. Go and meet him now. He's saying to the American, get the fuck out of here. And he's fighting with him. He puts his foot on his camera. Yeah, get out of here now. He is superb. He owns the movie. But this is a monster movie, and all said and done. Pretensions of epic grandeur, great score, wonderful atmospherics, and great scenery location. Just County Wicklow, gorgeous. Not the most clement of weathers, but it's authentic. It's authentic. Some poor visual effects, but then again, Clive Barker, listen mate, when you did Hellraiser, the visual effects that you put into the lament configuration and all those little lightning bolts, they were really poor as well. Bob Keene's prosthetics and animatronics are exemplary for your gore and your makeup effects, but the visual effects were still shit, let's be honest. So you can't denounce Rawhead for that, because your effects were no better in that respect. And also, Clive, met you a couple of times, a massive advocate of your books, your prose, your fiction, your style, your imagination. Truly do adore what you've done. But Hellraiser is magnificent. Nightbreed, I know everyone loves it, but I think no matter what version you come up with, it's still immensely flawed and it's not well directed. And Lord of Illusions is just terrible. And then a bigger budget for that and proper big stars as well. But no. Lord of Illusions, great short story, but my God, that film was terrible. So, I'm afraid, mate, don't be throwing stones in glass houses. You're a writer, you're a creator, you are not a director. You're not. George Pavlou did his best with very limited funds and a very limited time scale and did the best he possibly could. And, whether you like it or you don't, Rawhead Rex has become a bona fide cult movie. And it is immensely good fun. And I'll never get tired of watching it. It's such immensely stupid, goofy cheeseball entertainment, but with those little tones that you put in there, Clive, those little blasphemous, sacrilegious elements which really do kind of seal the deal and give it that little, that extra frisson of taboo. They're in there. So, anyway, folks, without further ado, I'm just going to swig this. And again, further plaudits to Colin Towns for this awesome score. Love your work. Love listening to you as well. I could easily sit with you and have a few sherbets, but I think you sound awesome. In the meantime, and this Celtic deity pissing in between time, take it easy. Watch out for stained glass effigies. Don't pick stones out of fields, because who knows what lurks beneath. And I'm going to see you all. Now that is a better effect than what you see in the movie. Glowing red eyes, helter skelter, helter skelter. Oh, those Celts. What are they thinking?